are now listening to the Bodds podcast with your hosts, the Odds Fellow, Punisher Picks, LockBets.net, and your announcer, Guns Picks. So time to strap in, dads. It's time to join the father figures in the Dad Bodds podcast.
Welcome everybody to the Dad Bodds podcast, episode number 63, and we are here Thanksgiving edition style. And man, oh man, do we have a ton of sports going on. We have college basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, NHL. We pretty much have virtually every sport except for MLB, but I want to introduce all the dads to the podcast. We have at Punisher Picks and LockBets.net. What's going on, boys?
What's
How
up,
you
man?
doing?
We are live on YouTube. I just got the notification on my phone. I was like, holy shit, that's pretty cool.
Heck
So
yeah.
watch live now. So
Yeah, and I realized I didn't plug in, so hopefully this works.
you know what I'm doing? I'm going to watch while I you'll hear that? I'm going to watch it myself. Is that bad radio?
That's
yeah,
bad
but
radio.
anyways,
Yeah, that's
we have
bad
a full
radio.
show.
I'm
We have
sorry,
a full
guys. I
show
just
ahead
got
of
so
us,
excited.
guys. So, I mean, we have a special guest here from the Canadian North. Is it Canadian North? What do you call it?
Our
Great North.
our neighbors up north.
Our neighbors up north. G Dog 5. Is it 1,000?
Yes.
500?
5,000.
5,000. Just like just
It's
like
like Andre
Outcast.
3,000, but
Like
G-Dog
Andre, right?
3,000.
So
5,000.
yeah, and you said Jill
Gilles
Gallant is coming into the show, and he is the prop king. But before we get to that, we just need to talk about sports. We need to talk about the college football playoff ranking just came out, and quite frankly, I'm not surprised about the ranking now, especially with putting Cincinnati at number 4.
So go run that down real quick because I briefly saw it, but I can't remember it. I was doing kid stuff, and I'm
Okay. So who we
single
have
dad tonight.
in the top 4 here is we have, of course, Georgia ranked at number 1.
Okay.
We have
Ohio State too, probably.
Ohio State number 2, Bama 3,
Right.
and then we have the Bearcats at 4. It looks like.
So they
And
moved
then
up because Oregon lost.
Correct. And then you have at 5, you have kind of an interesting one. I think this is probably because they want to hype up the
Michigan.
the
Is it
Michigan Ohio State game. So you have Michigan playing at 5.
Yeah.
You have Notre Dame like breathing down their necks, and Oklahoma State is behind Notre Dame. So I was trying to think about this a little bit as I was getting into it. It's like, is this a telltale sign? Because Notre Dame doesn't really have a good opponent coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens if Oklahoma State wins out and there's that 4th spot open? Does Notre Dame take that spot, or does Oklahoma State jump if they win out? Do they control their destiny?
I think they do, based off of what the committee says every year with conference championships mean something.
Right.
I kind of feel like Notre Dame has to go undefeated to get in, or a 1 loss with some really, really quality wins. But I mean, Notre Dame is a brand name, and you can't discount that. I think they also like brand names. I think the problem for OSU looks to me is going to be Cincinnati. Because if Cincinnati's undefeated, it looks they have them at 4 now.
I think they have them at 4, but they have a tough road ahead.
They
themselves.
do have Houston. They have Houston. They have Houston twice.
They have Houston once, but they have ECU coming up.
That's what it was. So Houston's in their conference championship game.
Correct.
And then it's also interesting to see where Baylor's at compared to OU. Baylor's ahead of OU with 2 losses.
Baylor needs things to happen
Like, that is confusing
for them to get
me.
into that
Like,
conference
why,
championship.
Like they value Baylor's head-to-head win over OU more than they valued Michigan State's head-to-head win over Michigan. So that to me is really fucking weird. Why would a 2-loss Baylor be ahead of a 1-loss OU?
Well, let me ask you
no
this.
Sense.
Well, let me ask you this, because you are a Oklahoma State fan, and I'm a Notre Dame fan. So we're both kind of sitting like on the outside looking in.
Right.
You have a big game ahead of you. You have an
nervous.
Oklahoma team that has basically owned your ass for
ever
10 years.
No, ever.
Maybe like straight 10 years.
Do you want to know how many? They've lost 6 in a row.
Okay.
To OU. Do you want to know how many wins they have all time in like 90 something years?
It's probably an absurd number of wins.
This will be a great guess. What's the?
I think 4
in 90.
7. I'll say 7.
It's 18, but still 18 wins and like
18's not that bad. I thought you were.
No, it's like 70. It's 70 and 18, right? It was like some
90,
number like that.
It's like 90 something, 18 and 7.
Okay,
but
it's like 20%. No, I'm not a math guy.
It's not good.
Okay.
It's not a rivalry.
But you never had a team like you have now.
But Oklahoma State hasn't been this Oklahoma State,
correct.
In the 80s, they had like Barry Sanders, and that was it. But they're kind of a flash in the pan. But they've kind of been building toward this. I'm nervous about the game. They're favorites, which is crazy. Probably the first time they've been favorites since 2011, where they finished number 3 with Whedon Blackman. That team that almost made it to the national championship and played Andrew Luck in the Fiesta Bowl.
Wasn't Whedon like 45 when he played in that game?
He was like 28.
Easy. No,
he was like, it was like
30.
the same situation as Winky. Remember?
Okay, yeah.
For Florida State, it was like that kind of a deal. He played baseball first, got drafted by the Yankees, and then he was like one of the best quarterbacks in the league and didn't have a scholarship because the Yankees were paying for his school. So,
but the interesting thing about this Oklahoma State team is like you've always been like kind of predicated on like how good your offense is. And you've always had that bad defense, but you've always outscored opponents. Mm-hmm. You actually have the exact opposite this year. You have a great defense that can defend against anybody, and then you're going against a Oklahoma team that is virtually directionless. I mean, you had a quarterback in Williams throwing like he had 80 yards passing last week or something like that. I heard.
When is this game?
Saturday.
Sunday. Saturday. I'm sorry.
Saturday ABC.
Gosh, don't we have better things to talk about other than these two stupid teams like Notre Dame and Oklahoma State? Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. My bad.
But you're right. It really sets up well for OSU.
Yep.
Because they do what they do well, OU doesn't do good. So if you look at how Baylor just demolished OU is going to try to emulate that same strategy. And if you stop OU's run game, you'll beat them. You got to stop Caleb Williams running because that's his big play, and you got to stop their running back as well. But man, it's a mental. They're better. They're a better team than OU this year. That's not going to be what wins it. It's a mental hurdle for not only the fans, for the players, for the coach who is obviously Gundy, who went to OSU, is used to getting his ass kicked by OSU. That's the problem. Yep. So it's just a whole aura around this game, and they kind of like shell up, and then OU is ready to go, better coached most of the time, and just comes out firing. But this team just seems different. I hope I don't eat my words, but they just seem like a different, better team with a defense that they've never had. Maybe the Big 12 hasn't had since OU in 2000. This reminds me of that OU team. Serviceable quarterback, Heupel with OU, Sanders for OSU, who's good, but he's not like a Heisman candidate by any means, right? But just a freaking nuts and bolts defense with a lot of no-name guys. Kind of like that 2000 OU team who, beat Florida State, 13-7 or whatever in that, or 12-something. 12-7.
Well, I hope that Gundy cut his mullet for a reason, but I mean, I think you got a Michigan team probably looking in the same direction as what Oklahoma State is. But I want to keep bantering on college football because I could probably do this the whole podcast. I want to transition a little bit on college basketball.
I mean, I thought you guys weren't going to stop. That was absolutely absurd.
Well, I'm so excited for the game, and before we move on, I'm not going to be there, and which is
what's your prediction? How about before we move on? What's your
23-10 OSU?
You heard it first. You heard it here
I
first.
like that too.
23-10.
But I mean, we have feast week too. I want to talk a little bit about college basketball. I know it's
Guns
like
is releasing some college. He's like, I'm waiting till feast week. Waiting till feast
I know.
Week. I'm not
He's
I'm
like
not
a
releasing
bulldog.
any plays till feast week. Nothing till it's feast week. You know what
It's
that
feast
means.
week. It's feast
We
week,
got
but
Locke and Guns firing away at college.
It's kind of interesting to kind of I've been watching a lot of the games now because I basically took this week off for a reason because I wanted to watch more college basketball this whole time, and I started watching the Maui Invitational and realized that they were playing in Las Vegas, which I just thought was absolutely absurd to me.
Yes,
I missed the small gym. I missed the lays and
the coaches wearing, the Andy Reid.
The middle school,
the hula shirts and the lays and everything like that.
It's like playing in Gonzaga's conference every week.
Correct.
I love looking at the gyms. The gyms look like it's a middle school, KYOB basketball arena or something.
And I was looking for the Battle of Atlantis too, and I guess that's now a women's tournament. Did anyone see that?
I think you're looking on the wrong site there, Guns.
Yeah, no.
Are you still on TikTok?
No, I was looking for the Battle for Atlantis, and I was like,
you know what? Let me do a little research into my own.
And I saw that South Carolina played Connecticut, and South Carolina won because they're the best team in the country right now. But I mean, I'm not trying to get into the women's sport right now, but I've been watching a lot of the games, and in looking at the slate, I feel like I guess I lost what Feast Week was, because Feast Week used to be some of the best going up against each other. And I feel like that got lost in the sauce, and we're watching a lot more of the
Feast Week used to be like,
teams.
Wasn't it like 24 hours of straight hoops or something at one point? You just watched like 48 hours and there wasn't a break.
Well, they don't do the 24 hours. They used to do that for the start of the season, but they've actually extended this out to, like, there was games at 1 a.m. Like I think Fresno played at 1 a.m. last night, and I don't know. I don't like the matchups in this game. You have a few. You have Gonzaga that's going to be playing UCLA tonight, and then you have Gonzaga going to go from UCLA and to go play Duke in a non-tournament. I don't know what's going on here with what happened. Did COVID just kill the Feast Week?
I think COVID killed all of these not international tournaments, but like off-site Hawaii. They might be doing the Diamond Head Classics. That happens around Christmas,
right?
It must have. What do you think, Locke? I mean, it has to be COVID. It has to be just restrictions. Maybe it's a little bit of money lost. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't fill the stands. You couldn't, for the last 2 years, basically, you missed out on probably $1 billion worth of money. And at the end of the day, the money is where maybe it's talking.
Maybe Hawaii has some weird rules about coming into.
Hawaii definitely, Hawaii's definitely like that.
It's an island rule. That's why the Maui.
We'll have to ask Ant. We'll have to ask Ant.
Have to ask Ant. Yeah.
I mean, I've been watching the games regardless. I just feel like I'm not as into it as I used to be. Like I used to have like 2 or 3 TVs on. And I'd be watching the tournaments, and I'm not feeling that right now. And I don't know if I'll feel that usually Tuesday and Wednesday are like, that's college basketball all day long. And now, like, I guess I'm going to go rake leaves.
I don't think they're doing a great job. I don't think they're doing a great job, like, promoting it.
Well, I don't think they're putting a lot of like teams together. Like, I mean,
no,
the Maui Invitational used to be fun to watch. And I mean, granted, they're going to have a premier game tonight with UCLA and Gonzaga, but it's going to be a late game. Like, you're going to have to stay up late.
It doesn't seem like a tournament. It's like not like a tournament thing. It's more just like a one-off.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I agree. And Gonzaga obviously is just trying to play anybody hard they can before they get into conference, because after that, they're.
It's like I'm more looking forward to the Egg Bowl. on Thursday.
Right.
then looking forward to like some of the matchups that are in college basketball.
I think also it's just hard to get in hoops mode early.
But
just hard to get
usually
in.
it's this week
I
when we
know.
get hyped up about it. You know what I mean?
I don't know why. Maybe we just have some fatigue because we're just
I think it's a
bombarded with
transition with
sports
crowds
because
and
of
everything like that, right?
Yeah, everything is kind of coming together late. I don't know. That's a great question. Maybe Gilles can allude to that. Maybe we can ask him if he knows.
Yeah,
we
can ask.
Like
He's pretty tuned in.
Yeah. While we actually transition right here, I want to like actually talk about our segment that we like to call the Dad Bodds Capper Breakdown.
It is time for the Dad Bodds Capper Breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We are at the Dad Bodds Capper Breakdown, brought to you by GPO Lock. 4 cappers, 1 spot for affordable price. Hit me up in the DMs if you want to join. Promo code, what is it? Guns God if you want a week for $20, and also Hockey God if you want one for 25% off. I will start
a year
as we did last week to keep the luck going. We were 3-1 last week, and I'm going back to the college football slate. We have rivalries here, and I'm going to be talking about a team that moved up into the college football playoff, and that is going to be Cincinnati at ECU. Now, this game is, to me, a look-ahead spot for Cincinnati because they're playing a very good Eastern Carolina team. Eastern Carolina has won 4 straight by an average of 16 points, and they average 493 yards of total offense, 4.7 yards per carry on the rush, plus 176 net yards in that run. Now you got to look at who they played. They played Houston on the road, lost by 7 points. And the Houston offense, while they're not great, they struggled in that game, only put up 256 yards of total offense, plus 104 net yards in that game. But the difference of the game, -2 in turnover ratio. Now you have Cincinnati coming off a big win. They beat SMU. SMU was a top team in that conference in the AAC. But that was at home. You have to look at Cincinnati on the road, plus 39 net yards on the road this year compared to plus 198 of net yards at home. Also, you got to look at a revenge factor in this spot. They beat the crap out of ECU last year. ECU was a bad team, 55-17 in that game. But the year before that, ECU only lost by 3. And the line here is like 13, 14 points, depending on where you get them. Also, you got to look at Cincinnati on the road this year versus conference opponents. 0-3 against the spread already this year. The home team in this matchup between ECU and Cincinnati is 12-2 against the spread. So with all that being said, all the statistics applied, you have to be taking ECU as a double-digit dog as a play, because I think there's going to be a look ahead here going to the AAC championship. That's a play. ECU.
Love
plus
that.
13.5, 14, however you get it.
Yeah, I love that. I really do. I think since the only downfall to that is if Cincy's just trying to put up style points, but I think they're going to come out.
I think they put up style points against SMU. They're not going to put it up.
Yeah,
this
I think
week.
they're going to be a little
the
bit
other
tight.
style points on Houston.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a little tight.
Yeah. I think
I
am the guru of AAC. I can go back. I don't think I've lost an AAC bet, but I want to turn to you, Pun. You have an NHL pick.
Yes, I do. I'm going to take, and this is kind of projecting out a little bit, and I expect the line to be 2.5, and I think it's already out a couple places, but I'm going to take the Islanders over 2.5 goals. Their
what
team total tomorrow.
Okay.
So that will be tomorrow night at home versus the Rangers. It's sort of it's a rivalry game. The Rangers will be favored. The Islanders are really bad at scoring goals at home, but not tomorrow night. They get at least 3, and we go 2-0 on our little team totals for a season that started great. I think like 19-11 or 19-12 on just NHL team totals so far this year with We have one cooking tonight. We have the Flyers under 2.5 at Tampa, and it's 2-0 with 8 minutes left in the second. So keep an eye out for those. But yeah, Islanders team total under 2.5 should be like minus 120-ish. But the juice doesn't matter. Whatever it is, we're taking it.
Nice. I like it.
Over 2.5. As I said, under, that's wrong. Over 2.5.
Oh, wait. It's over 2.5 on the Islanders?
Over 2.5.
Over.
Yeah.
Over 2.5 on the Islanders is the capper breakdown pick. Lock bets. You got some NFL for us?
Yeah, guys. Hey, I'm going to keep it quick right here. I've been writing a few notes on my chicken scratch right here. Been listening to you guys. I wrote down your picks. I'm going to be tailing. Guys, we're going to the NFL. Okay. Last week, I gave you Chiefs, which was a gift from the gods. I also gave you the Raiders, which was
no bueno.
Probably a shit from the gods. But we're evening out. Okay, guys, just like my internal system, we're evening it out. I'm going to give you some numbers here because I'm a numbers guy, okay? See this brain right here? Big numbers guy. If I told you that a team was on the road and they scored the following points, I need you to guess who it is. 35 points on the road.
Okay.
38 points on the road. 31 points on the road. 45 points on the road. Who would you think I'm talking about?
I have a guess.
On the road.
I have a guess.
Okay.
Can I go first?
You can guess. Yeah. Pun. What do you got?
Colts.
Guns, what's your guess? On the road.
Wait. Say that one more time for the question.
Okay, so there's a team in the NFL.
Yep.
They have. Well, want me to tell you each game what they've scored on the road?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a high scoring road team.
High scoring
road team. 35.
Okay, that's
points,
all I need to know.
35 points. Week 2, and then they followed up week 4, 38 points on the road. Week 5, 31 points. Week 8, 45 points on the road.
That's
okay.
I'm sure our guest would know this one, but I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna say Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
I was close.
And
I was thinking Colts Bills that
not
game.
going to be wasting any time this week, my friends. We are going to New Orleans. We're going to the house that Jameis built. Not going to be playing this week. Alvin Kamara is not practicing right now. All indications are signing that he's not going to be playing. I do not like Trevor Siemian in that offense. I think Josh Allen on the road is calm, cool, and collective, and they're just hitting a stride after they lost last week. They lost at home versus the Colts, absolutely embarrassed by Carson Wentz and Jonathan Taylor. I love Josh Allen on Thanksgiving this week. I think he eats up all the fucking turkey legs, doesn't take any crab legs, and he fucking puts up at least 40 points on the road, and they cover 6 points, 6.5, 7, 7.5. They're going to win by 10.
Whoa. Alt line. Look out. Alternate line.
The official pick is the Bills minus 6.5, whatever you can find.
Sweet.
Bang. So we have, to recap, we have Eastern Carolina plus 13.5. We have the Islanders over 2.5.
Correct.
And we have the Buffalo Bills at
minus 6.
So those are your picks for the Dad Bodds breakdown.
Looking to go 6-1.
Yes, we're gonna go 6. We're gonna sweep this week. That's what we're gonna do.
Let's go.
But I have to digress. I have to transition because I hear a little bit of a doorbell.
Oh, you know that sound. That means the dads have a special guest ready to join the show. Let's tune in and see who it could be.
And we are back here, but we have a very special guest that we're going to add into the group here to talk a little bit about NFL, maybe a little bit of NBA in the process, but I want to introduce him properly. Sports betting analysis analyst with FTN Bets, host of Touchdown Town and Dog Day Afternoon, which I love, with at Bets Media, and he self-proclaimed maybe the king of NFL T-down, touchdown, score props, and turnover prop connoisseur. Please welcome to the Dad Bodds podcast. You can find him on Twitter at GDog5000. Gildes Galant. And I know I got that wrong because Punisher corrected me before. Welcome, sir, to the Dad Bodds podcast.
I tried my best.
What an intro. Wow. Okay. Well, it's good. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, guys, I'm a couple whiskeys deep, so pardon me if I'm a little off. I've just been researching touchdown score bets all night, and yeah, I don't know if I would be self-proclaimed guns. Like, I think the interaction alone just after the last 3 seasons, I'm not saying I would be the king of it. Would even say that I'm the best touchdown score better. But I would bear to say that there's probably not a lot of people who focus on that market more than I do. And if that makes me a king just based on being there, then I'll take it.
Yeah, we encourage drinking on this podcast. But I want to ask a question because in your profile, you do have the king. Well, you have the moniker of the, I guess what do you call it? The emoji of the
crown.
The little crown. Yeah. Ariel Epstein is considered the queen of props. Does that mean that she's your queen?
Well, no, I wouldn't say it that way at all, or at least not romantically. But I would definitely say that she is really good at all props. Like, I think I'm okay at like other props. I just think that I'm probably the most knowledgeable about touchdown score props. I can give you historic kind of analysis. I can give you odds comparison data. There's not really many people that I think you could talk to about touchdown score markets and bets that I think that would be able to rival the type of knowledge I can bring to the table. That being said, somebody like Ariel or anybody else who's considered the king of props, queen of props, the jester, whatever matriarch role or royalty type of role you want to give them, they're probably much better at props than I am. And that's the thing. It's just because I put so much focus and dedication into that market that as a result, my skills maybe diminish a little bit as a result in those other markets.
Yeah, I think I've kind of turned like my thought process of like what I considered like, props betters or actually props sharps or for that matter. It's something that I'm always a side and total guy. Like I'm very simplistic with that, but I've kind of turned the corner on like people that can actually do that and actually like gain some sort of positive prop success in that. What is your process as far as like just kind of focusing on certain type of props, or do you like try to venture into like, over receiving yards or just focus on more on the touchdowns and whatever?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess guns, it's a great question. I think the first thing that I would say is it's got to be plus money. That's usually the first thing that I'll gravitate towards. Then we can start doing the research. Then we can start looking at, okay, what are the splits? What are the circumstances that we're working with? What are the odds telling me based on the way that they're listed? So to the 2 main props that I'm really betting on over the summer, I was betting home run props a lot as well, like with the Blue Jays, and was just basically betting like basically the heart of the order in between 1 through 5 and just kind of betting that. But with touchdown scores, there's a much different process. There's really it's a simplified process. Maybe it just feels simple to me because I'm so deep in the weeds. But at the same time, it's a fairly simple process that I can explain to people of a system that I use, whether it be for touchdown scores, whether it be for 3-point made props that I bet on routinely as well, or in general, just kind of what I'm looking at. So I guess with touchdown scores, there's 3 main factors that, any bettor can use, any data. Like, you don't have to be an expert to do this. It's just the 3 things that you want to look at are the odds, the matchup, and the stats. And I say that in that specific order because that's what's going to dictate whether I bet on it or not. So the odds, the first thing is the odds will pretty much tell you what your implied probability is, and then you almost have to kind of look at implied probability of this player scoring. So let's use, right now I'm looking at for Saints Bills, I see Taysom Hill right now at plus 400 to score a touchdown this week. So immediately the first thing that I see is, okay, that's actually a little bit higher than what he normally is. So one thing that we do at FTN Bets is I track the touchdown scorer odds for every single player for every single week, because one of the main things that I like to focus on is whether or not I'm getting value on that bet. If I'm betting on Taysom Hill, who's more likely to get some red zone carries with the Saints, just given the circumstance, no Kamara. If that is the case, he should probably be closer to running back odds. So that would be around plus 150, maybe even backup running back odds, plus 250, kind of that range. So you already know that he's going to get that usage just based on his role and because of who he is as Taysom Hill. And then, of course, the odds comparison tool that I was bringing up from FTN Bets, we're able to track the odds. So you can see, like, wait a minute, he hasn't been more than plus 400 since, week 8 or something like that. And you're looking at the different matchups of why he was those odds for that circumstance. So obviously facing a team like the Bills, who's a fairly stout run defense, and just across the board, if you just look at general stats, whether it be for passing or rushing or wherever, like they're up there in the top 5 in metrics when it comes to that. But at the same time, this is Taysom Hill playing at home with no Alvin Kamara, being put in a position where he's probably going to have to run a lot. You're getting better odds than normal against a team that, let's not forget, they let Ryan Tannehill rush one in on them a couple weeks ago. And their defense has kind of been slowly, I don't want to say regressing, but it really does matter if whether or not Tremaine Edmonds plays. Like, I'm not really a guy that will completely change my opinion on a team if one player is gone or one player isn't in. But Tremaine Edmonds is one of the best middle linebackers in the league. And if anything, he's just as important to that defense as Tre'Davious White. And he didn't play this past week against the Colts. And you watched the middle just get basically roasted by them. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, Pun, is that already I'm like, okay, the odds are telling me right now that you're saying that he's unlikely to score based on the statistics that the Bills are presenting based on the first 11 weeks of the season. What I'm saying is that based on the circumstance, like, let's say a plus 400 implied odds is like 20%. I think he actually has closer to like a 30% odds to score just based on my projection, because I do odds, like I generate odds basically for every player. And with Taysom Hill coming into this game, I had him around plus 300. Like, it was maybe plus 310 is what it rounded off to be. But plus 300 is kind of what I would round to, because generally sportsbooks like to keep nice round numbers for these. So if I'm already getting them at plus 400, it's like, okay, there's immediate value there based on my own projections. So that's kind of what I look at as the odds. Then the matchup, it's like, okay, let's look at what they're facing against the Bills, and then the stats. Then you could start looking at whether or not how Taysom Hill does in the red zone. And
is there a delta? Is there like a gap that you look at if your implied odds are like 310 and the book is 400? Is there like are you looking for like a 50-point spread, or are you looking for what makes you happy when you see a number versus what you project?
Sure, a lot of the time is, and again, we're all human. Like, again, I think of Taysom Hill running all over this defense, and I'm just like, well, could that happen? All right, well, let's just kind of look at the odds based on what the Bills have allowed so far this year, the yards per carry, what the Saints have done, just also with Trevor Siemian as quarterback, which is a different look than Jameis, and they're right up there with yards per play. Like, they're like I know it's against the Titans and against other teams, but like they're still putting up points on the board. So it's not like they're just being stagnant and like what you're watching, what we're probably going to see in the first game on Thursday between the Lions and Bears, where they're just not going to be able to probably move the ball at all at each other. And it's just going to be a rock fight. And that's kind of the thing, is like, okay, could I actually envision this? All right, now let's look at the odds. Now look at the stat discrepancy. A lot of the time you probably want like a plus 100. So let's say if I generate plus 300 and his odds are plus 400, then I'm starting to be considered. If it's like right on the line, or maybe like plus 0.5 or something like that of an odds change, I'm not really like, that's not enough for me to kind of like, whoa, that's a huge odds discrepancy, like kind of thing, right? So Taysom Hill is probably not the best example for this exercise, but at the same time, I think that's kind of just what I'm trying to say is when I do my process of betting touchdown scores, because I'm a little different than other people too. Because I am, I guess, Guns, the proclaimed touchdown scorer king. I have what I feel is an obligation to my followers, because in my opinion, and I'm not saying that people can't be experts who pick touchdown scorers in between plus 100 and plus 200. I just feel like you don't have to be an expert to tell me that Jonathan Taylor is going to score this week. Why do I exist if I'm there just telling you to pick Alvin Kamara to score? Like, if he's a first round or a second round draft pick in your fantasy league, I probably don't need to tell you about him. You probably already know that he's a good player. You kind of want
the plays that nobody else has, or something that adds just so much more value than a random.
You're right, man. And that's the one thing. So for myself, one of the things, I didn't back myself into a corner. I still take guys below plus 200 occasionally. Let's say I think when I calculated up, I've done 136 picks so far since the start of the season. I'm only up like 5 units, and I'm probably only hitting at like 26% for the season. But at the same time, I've only taken 9 guys below plus 200. So the guys that I'm taking are like wide receiver 3, backup tight end, secondary running back, or a quarterback, for example. So I just personally feel that like I have an obligation to my readership or my followers or whoever, that I'm trying to dig up the gems from touchdown scores, like guys that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Because if I come in against this Bills Saints game, and for example, Stephon Diggs is plus 120. Like, I personally don't like. I mean, I think I have enough respect for all of you that I think that you probably already know that Stephon Diggs is a pretty good player. Now, I'm not saying that there's casual or novice bettors who come in who don't need that kind of coaching and whatever to get through, and I'm happy to kind of advise them and coach them on those kinds of tips. But at the same time, I've also learned that for myself, because I bet touchdown scores long term. I'm not just diving in and jumping in and out kind of thing. If you bet these long term and you bet them under plus 200 long term, you will lose, because we've already have the data that shows that touchdown scores between minus 200 to plus 199 only hit at a marginally more rate than touchdown scores from 201 to 490 to plus 499. And you're only up by a slight bit more of profit if you just blindly bet all of them as compared to these ones, but your ceiling is capped. Like, the margin for error is so low. So if you're betting 6 to 7 touchdown scores in a weekend and they're all less than plus 200, you got to hit 4 of those. And it's damn hard to hit a touchdown score bet, in my opinion. It just doesn't matter if it's Jonathan Taylor or DeGuara, the Green Bay tight end who caught it.
Locks, you got a question?
Yeah.
Sorry,
first off,
I'm drinking. I got a little bit of.
Yeah, I know. We blabber a lot on this podcast, so it's all good. We just let people roll.
I was hoping Locks Cameron Brate was going to hit last night, because he had Cameron.
I was going to say,
Locks is a prop guy. So
I was going to ask if you had him or what your data said about that, because I thought that Evans touchdown was Brate.
And
when he's kind of boxing him out on that 5-yard pass or whatever it was.
I agree. Yeah. Sorry, Locke, you can ask your question in a sec. Punt, I'll just say about Brate. Really, just what happened with that is once Gronkowski got ruled in, so he was around the plus 125, plus 130 range. You saw Brate drop from about, if he was the starting tight end, he'd probably be like plus 225. He dropped to about plus 400 from that change. But even OJ Howard had lower odds than Cameron Brate in that game. But what we've seen, and even if you just go back to last year's playoff run, is that when both Gronk and Brate are in the game, Gronk is the one who stays back and blocks. He's not necessarily the one who's dipping out for passes. So Brate is actually a pretty good, valuable play. I ended up just not even taking Brate. I ended up going, Tom Brady and Tyler Johnson, thinking I could cash in on the wide receiver depth, because the Giants have been so terrible against wide receivers this year. And Tom Brady had just at plus 750. That was the reason why I bet him, because I just figured from the 1 yard line, he's just going to stick it to him. And I already know that if we're at the 1 yard line, that's what he's going to do. So that would be pretty much it. Cameron Brate, my heart breaks for you that it didn't cash for you.
And you know what? It was at the end of the game. If you saw that little slant right toward.
We just I want to transition on that one anyways, because you have a segment called Apparently, and I actually been watching a lot of your content lately, because I like to research anybody that I'm interviewing, and I want to be at least a little bit informative. So apparently you are a parent, and you're a dad like us, and Pun's a dad, I'm a dad, Oddfellow, who's not here with us, is a dad as well. And I had to bring this up to you because you had an apparent parent blunder. And I wanted to share this with everybody on the podcast here. So, and it's something that you've shared with, if I can pull this up like a normal dad would.
Yeah, it's what is it, year anniversary of the.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I shared this video last year.
Oh, here it is.
Share it away.
Here it is.
Yeah, I'm sharing it here, and I just wanted to do a breakdown of it from your standpoint.
Yeah, I can give you a full play-by-play. So essentially, we were playing a game where they like to swing off the table, and it was no biggie. They just wanted to basically like swing and then land, and then they climb back up on the table and swing and land. And my oldest decided she didn't want to do it anymore. So I was like, okay, like I'm not going to tell you. And then she decided she wanted to go play with toys behind me, and of course. That was where dad mode did not kick in. I have to be more aware of what's happening behind me. That's
head on a swivel at all times.
And and like there are grenades everywhere. And with her, she just popped out of nowhere. This is like not... just like and so like and then of course like I mean I've shared this in like my wife has shared this in like groups and whatever else and like
it's
like
not
the first thing that comes out. First thing that comes out is not, oh, I hope she's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Or like, oh, you know, like girl, you know, I've been there, like, you know, that kind of thing, just to make me feel a little bit better about not being a POS. And first thing people are like, you know, you shouldn't do that. You could hurt their elbows. And it's like,
right.
Come on, guys.
Oh my God.
Like I'm swinging them and throwing them through the air and stuff like that. So anyway, I
thought it was funny because I saw something like that, but like, I mean, that video that you had, your kids were younger. Like I had a recent one, like I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and they like to basically just like play kill the man with the ball outside, a version of it anyways. And they threw the ball at me, and I basically ran like Derrick Henry, like through the front of the line. And I kept those high knees up, and I bashed my son so hard. No. I trucked him, and I go, "Oh no, I didn't mean to do that." Well, he grabbed my leg, and I just like, I'm gonna go barrel through him, and I got him. He's like, "You good?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm good. That was fun."
Oh, man. I'm at the point, man, where like my kids are 4 and 3. I'm still at the point where I'm like scared to back up too quick because my kids follow me everywhere I go.
Yeah.
And as soon as I back up like this, it's like bang, and they just run into me and are like, you know, sniper hit them kind of thing. And like, I'm still kind of always just kind of paranoid from that. I mean, that video now is just more makes me laugh.
It's just funny,
like,
right? Yeah,
I mean, I have other videos.
Nobody
like,
was injured.
If anything, like the funniest thing that I always get asked is like, why was somebody taping that? Like,
I was going to ask who was
like,
taping it, or you do have a camera in there or something, maybe?
No, just the wife. And the thing is, like, again, it was just clearly we were all having fun. Like, you know, it wouldn't just be the first.
I wasn't like wasn't a pendulum deal I was doing.
I thought it was funny. I laughed. I laughed.
I thought you were going to step on those. I thought you were going to step on those Legos or whatever was behind you and just completely ruin your night.
And I mean, the one thing that like it was, I don't want to call it over dramatic, but one thing that definitely happened is just because she hit the back, like the bin that we put all the Legos and stuff in. So it just like amplified all the different sounds.
Made it so loud.
So like if you're watching like just at home and you got your earbuds in, and you're just like, oh my God, she sounds like she like crunched over everything that's possibly on the floor. And I mean, what was like, she might have was like, ow. And then like a minute later, we're watching
just
the video.
The loudest thing possible,
together,
basically. So. Yeah. All right. We have Lock Bets back. We have Lock Bets back. And he wanted to ask a question, but he apparently.
Can you guys
apparently
hear me?
He doesn't have very good Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What's up? Good. What's up, dudes? So first off, I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
I love this summer. I feel like every time I'd be on my timeline and I'd be posting, regular straight bets, I would just see Vladdy Guerrero. I would see, Simeon,
Springer.
And I tell you what, man, it seemed like a profitable model. So hats off to you. I mean,
thank you.
Pretty awesome stuff. And obviously you're huge in the industry and I love your background, by the way. First off, I mean,
thank you. Bets TV, man.
I mean, that's just great. I mean, is that TV magic? Is that Hollywood magic behind you? Or is that the real deal?
No, this is as simple as no. We're not in Pinewood Studios in Georgia or anything, shooting a Marvel movie or anything. This is just a TV, just a regular smart TV, but I just AirPlay whatever image I want. Like, for example, I could have AirPlayed that same video that we just watched a second ago and watch my oldest get crunched.
Guns, why aren't you doing that on behind you? That's what you should have done.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, hindsight is 2020, right? I mean, we could fix it up in post, I guess, if this is a Marvel movie, as we say.
The main question I got for you, brother, is let's say it's Sunday afternoon. Mm-hmm. You're in the neighboring North. What's the atmosphere like on NFL Sunday? I mean, what's your upbringing? What's your upbringing with football? Did you play football? Give the listeners some insight. What's it like up there?
Sure. So, football, like youth football, so I'm 37. Youth football didn't really get introduced heavily outside of the major city. So, let's say we have a state or with a province that I'm from in Nova Scotia, it's probably the size, or maybe a little bit smaller than, let's say, Maine. Let's say, just as an example, or New Hampshire, these smaller states. But of these states, let's say there's one major city, that's where youth football is being played. Every other little town that's around them that have 20 to 30,000 people in them, they're not really playing youth football. Especially in Canada, you're playing hockey, right? So, or you're playing basketball to a lesser extent, baseball in the summer, pretty much all the same sports. It's just football is not in the DNA.
So it's kind of similar to how hockey is here in non-hockey states. Maybe would be a good.
I would even argue that it's almost like college football, man. NFL, I feel while there's passion for it, even just listening to you guys talk about the history of some of the college football matchups and bringing up Brandon Whedon and Wanky, and I just kind of listen to that stuff. The passion for college football is probably more rampant, just as close from an equivalent of the way that people grow up in sports towards hockey. You know what I mean? Where there's just such a connection and affinity to those certain teams from certain years. And the one thing for me is that I'm an outlier. I'm the guy that didn't play hockey growing up. I wasn't very good skating. I have weak ankles. That's why I play basketball. And I played football growing up, but by the time youth football was introduced in my area, I was 14, 15 years old. So we were constantly playing flag and two-hand touch and whatever else. So as a result, the atmosphere on Sundays, not really it's not anything that you would get. There's no no tailgating or anything like that. I mean, even college or university football here, there's some passion to it, and if the team is good, people would show up. But at the same time, it's kind of a fair weather type of sport here. I find even let's use Thursday as an example. Obviously, people will be watching football in Canada on Thursday afternoon, but at the same time, because it's not American Thanksgiving, we already had our Thanksgiving at the beginning of November, actually mid-October. What am I even saying? We don't even it's business as usual for me tomorrow. I'm waking up, I'm back on my, back going to be writing, going to be
right.
shooting a video. We host a big Thanksgiving show on FTN bets tomorrow that myself and Chris Meany are going to do. We're going to break down all three games. So again, I think the reason why we got designated, we're both Canadians. So I think that's the reason why we drew the short straw on that. But at the same time, that's something that I would have been doing anyway. And that's why let's do it. In the past 3 years, before I joined FTN bets, I was with Oddshark. We would all gather in a huge kind of area, group, a bar area, that's in the office. They would order a bunch of KFC. So over the last 3 years, and since I've been in the industry, obviously my bubble as far as the excitement level for football on Sundays has obviously been through the roof. It's amped. Even Chicago Lions can't bring me down, right? So it's kind of I'm amped. I'm going to get free food. I'm going to be off for most of the afternoon. I'm going to be, betting on sports. What's better? It'd basically be the equivalent of March Madness, whereas that's the one thing I would say here is even March Madness, again, sports fans and basketball fans and bettors are still a fan of March Madness. But the difference here comparatively to probably some of the places that you're from, or let's just say pun, in Oklahoma,
right.
The average everyday person isn't just thinking about, the local team, or the university team or whatever else. They're just not sitting there thinking about it. Whereas I'm willing to say that even if people got shit going on in their lives in the state of Oklahoma, a majority of them are thinking about what's going on with the quarterback situation at Oklahoma right now.
Right.
Like, you know, we're just thinking
Right.
about that storyline, and just it's just ingrained in them. And not only that, it's not only that they're thinking about it, just their local media is talking about it,
Right.
and other people are bringing it up to them when they're just walking around, and that's not really the topic of conversation here, unfortunately. So that's why I am a little bit of an outlier. But at the same time, there's still, if you want to find people to have that atmosphere and good time and celebrate Sunday football or celebrate Saturday college football or whatever, you know, pick the sport, you find people. There are people, there are pockets of people all over the place that want to do that. But as far as the general thinking and DNA of it, it's not even on the radar.
Is there a team that Canada adopts, or is it
What part
kind
of
of
Canada are you
regional?
from?
Well, I'm from East Coast Canada, so even more so, like, so, you know, that's
Like
you
when
gotta
you say
keep going
East Coast, like east of Maine.
Nova
Like
Scotia.
northeast?
Oh,
Okay.
Nova
like
Scotia. Okay.
northeastern.
Northeast,
So
okay.
like
I'm from Maine,
the
so
province
I
that
know Maine.
the province
real
that shares a border with Maine is called New Brunswick.
Yep.
And then there's a province, so they're equivalent to like states. Equivalent east of New Brunswick is another province called Nova Scotia, and that's where I grew up. That's
Okay.
where Joe Osborne grew up. That's where Ian McMillan grew up. Like all of us, like we all worked in the same office together, just right here
Yeah,
in,
that's crazy.
in Nova Scotia.
like that Frenchish accent that like I recognize. Like I'm from Maine, so like that, like you get that Canadian
Mhm.
grouping in the summertime that like kind of like transcends into like my
Yeah.
area around the summertime.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of fun. But I wanted to like kind of transition because you talked about NFL props for Thanksgiving, and we have 3 Thanksgiving games, so we wanted to like give the audience a few props on this one. But I want to start. Do you have anything for like Detroit and Chicago or Dallas and who would they play? The Raiders?
Yeah.
If you don't want to give away your whole
poker.
poker hand, you don't have to.
No, it's fine. I think so this was based on just discussions that I had with my co-host of Touchdown Town, Brendan Deeg, earlier today. Just some people at FTN. We were just already kind of looking at this Bears-Lions matchup, and it was just like, man, I don't really know how we're going to get to. I feel like this is a 17-14 game. Like I'm hard to find points right now. Like I'm trying, and I feel like if I am going to find points, I'm probably going to bet like a defensive touchdown. So like Bet365, for example, one of the sports books I use pretty routinely, but you could find these kind of bets elsewhere. I think there's going to be a defensive or special teams touchdown in this game, and I would definitely be looking at interception, like another prop that I looked at as well. Like I thought it was inexplicable that Andy Dalton was plus 105 for an interception on the road in a Thanksgiving game. Like I was just like, this is not, like these odds don't match up. So immediately when I saw plus odds, yes, I know that his pass attempts are down. And yes, I know that like obviously the Lions aren't one of the best teams at forcing turnovers, but it's the circumstance and just, you know, being on a different system or not even different system, but being in a different time zone just that early in the morning and playing, it's a completely different phase. I'm not trying to use like the starting pitcher equivalent of like, you know, completely changing routines and shit like that. But at the same time, it does just kind of change the mentality. And I find as well, when you got a guy like Andy Dalton, who's pretty familiar with the system, one of the things that you see with an inept offense like this is just tip balls. One of the stats that I measure a lot is tip balls, just specifically whether it be tip at the line of scrimmage or tips off passes. And they don't necessarily have to be drop passes because you could track the stats of whether or not it was a tip ball as opposed to just a complete drop. And one of the things that I look at is like the Bears are like top 10 in that category this season. So immediately that makes me think it doesn't really matter if whether or not it's Andy Dalton's fault. You could just throw it to Allen Robinson, goes between his hands, and then the guy gets gift wrapped an interception, and you cash your bet. Or just Andy Dalton makes a bad decision at the end of the half, just decides to bomb it because for whatever reason, that's the only play that they could envision in their head. But I just think like that should not be plus money. That should be like around like minus 130, minus 140. Just like the fact that I'm blanking on the guy's name. I just call him the new TB12, the guy with the Lions. But the point is with him, he's
Goff?
like minus
Jared
180.
Goff.
You talking about golf?
Yeah. No, Goff's not playing on Thursday. The
No, he's
backup.
not. I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah, the
but his
backup. I
backup,
can't
but-
think of his name.
Oh God,
I'm
who's
not-
that guy's name?
All I know is I'm not gonna try to learn his name because he's not gonna be a regular starter in my life where I have to handicap him regularly. I'm just gonna call
Campbell
him.
said I thought Campbell said Goff may be ready to go. Is that not the?
I mean, that might have changed in the last couple of hours because I haven't just been looking at Twitter in the last bit. But as far as I know, it was going to be TB12,
new
four-man
TB12
version. Yeah, that is going to play, and he was awful. And it's that type of quarterback that you're seeing that is going to be is no different than when we watched.
Tim Boyle.
Yeah,
Tim
Tim Boyle.
Boyle.
Sorry. Oh my! I can't believe.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
the same reason.
How did you
I
let
can
that?
remember
How did you
David-
let that household name
I wouldn't
slip your
have got that
tongue?
one either.
Yeah.
The fact that I can remember David Blau, but I can't remember Tim Boyle.
Well, he's the
is-
third stringer.
is-
Yeah, right.
It's just is sad for my own existence. But at the same time,
Oh,
you
what
just
a
look at
game.
what the prices is. The Bears aren't forcing interceptions at that kind of rate, and he's right now sitting at minus 150, minus 160 throw an interception, and it's just like that's not priced appropriately. Like, yes, he should be priced that way, but why isn't Dalton priced that way? Anyway, so that's kind of one of the bets that I was immediately looking at. Honestly, if you can get, I wouldn't normally recommend bets under plus 200, but if you can get DeAndre Swift at the highest odds possible, I'm seeing him around plus 130, plus 140. The usage on him alone is worth to score a touchdown against this team. Now, on the flip side, I would be looking at David Montgomery to score 2, because the last time they played the Lions, ran all over them. He actually got injured in the third quarter and scored 2 touchdowns in the first half on them. Lions are by far the worst team in the league in defending running backs. Like, you can look at any metric, whether it be the pass, whether it be like just look at that one game against the Aaron Jones where they allowed like 5 touchdowns. That completely skewed the stats, but still, every game they're allowing 2 to 3 touchdowns for running back. Joe Mixon did the same thing on them. I would be looking at David Montgomery for 2. I've seen him around plus 350, plus 400 for those odds. And I would probably be considering DeAndre Swift at the same time, around plus 700, plus 800 odds for that game because of his usage. And because the Chicago Bears defensively this year, especially with no Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson's still kind of coming back, but he's not quite there yet. They've been struggling against the run this year, a lot more than in previous years, like where they were in the top 3 to top 5 in touchdowns allowed to running backs. This year, it's completely changed, and they're more middle of the pack for yardage and touchdowns. So DeAndre Swift is somebody, just because of the fact that he's been so versatile, you've seen him be able to break out big runs of 60-yard touchdowns or 30-yard touchdowns. It just doesn't really matter the variety. He's been able to score in those kind of situations. So I'd be looking at him for 2 because I honestly don't trust these quarterbacks to spread the ball around with the way that how broken both these offenses are and just the circumstance. So long and short, I'd be looking at Swift and Montgomery for 2. If I could, I'd be looking at defensive special teams touchdown. If I started looking deeper into skill players, honestly, the first guy I thought of was Allen Robinson because he has a way better connection with Andy Dalton than Justin Fields has had so far in his career. And right now, he is the type of quarterback who tries to feature wide receiver 1. That's basically been his MO since he's come in the league. I mean, you just have to look at AJ Green numbers or Amari Cooper numbers last year just to show that how much he features wide receiver 1 way more than others. So that's why I'd be looking at Allen Robinson. I'm not seeing him at best better than plus 150, and he has been struggling a lot lately. So I'm not like 100% confident, but at the same time, the Lions don't really have any edge defensively where they could stop people. So you could pretty much justify any Bears touchdown score.
I think this is funny, too, because this is Andy Dalton's back-to-back Thanksgiving games, because with 2 different
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah, he started for the Cowboys last year.
He started for the Cowboys last year when Prescott was hurt.
I try not to remember that.
Yeah,
Makes
and
sense.
Prescott's
Kinda-
injury was like very, traumatic.
Add a little salt to this whiskey and then pour it in my wound while you're doing it.
I'm going to need to bet those props for the Lions game because that's the only way I'm going to be able to watch it.
I completely agree. You said 17-13. I was thinking 14-13 for the Detroit and Chicago game. I actually heard the coach for Detroit saying, because he had an intricate analysis after his press conference. He said he had a punt with like three minutes to go in last in the last game when he was down and they asked him about it. He's like, listen, he's like, I thought my defense would get that stop and I get the ball back. It's like, we're going to be playing very close games and they're going to be very low scoring. So that was kind of like the analysis that told me, like, this is an under style game. I don't know if you want to take Detroit or Chicago, but I would think anything.
What's the total?
would lead to
38?
It's like 40,
No,
41.
well, it was 41 and a half was the
Yeah.
total. And I honestly think that's too high. One of the stats, I mean, I'm not huge into trends, but at the same time, people eat that shit up and rightfully so, because some of them there is some truth to them. But I would say that they've faced each other now the last 4 seasons for Thanksgiving. Most of the personnel is mostly the same, but if you just use the last 3 years, you could even use that just to like kind of compare. But in those games, the Bears are 3-1 straight up. They're 2-1 against the spread. The total is a combined score of 43. But I mean, at this point, especially this season, like both teams average like 16 points a game. So really what you're asking for is you're asking for something random to happen. And in my opinion, if something random is going to happen like that, you might as well start betting interception props and defensive touchdown props.
Yeah, that's where your special teams and defensive touchdown.
I thought if I could find a line at 41, if I could find one at 41, 42. I mean, 42 would be just like brilliant. I think above 40 would be fine.
Yeah, the line right now, I'm sitting at 41 and a half is what I'm looking at right now.
Oh, wow.
I mean, obviously 42 is a little bit more of a magic number when it comes to totals. But at the same time, for this game, I mean, I don't know if you could make the total low enough.
Man,
I feel like 35.
No, you can't. I think anything above 38 would
42.
be fine with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Action has it at 42 somehow. So I don't know.
I mean, I'm just looking at two books.
I don't
Like I'm
know
looking at
where.
right now, Bet365 and
Fox
FanDuel.
Bet,
But, yeah,
Points Bet. I mean, there's a couple places that have it at 42, which is surprising.
yeah, grab it at 42. Like that way, at least you can assure yourself maybe as some sort of push, just as like the tiny bit of safety net, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't buy odds on that though. Like if it's at 42 and it's minus 115 for the under, I'd just say no. Like I'm going to take them under 41 and a half at minus 110. Like I'm not going to. The safety net is not worth a 5 cent. I still feel like there's going to be so few points and so few opportunities because that's my biggest thing about this game is how are these teams going to do between the 20s? I know they're really bad both right now in red zone opportunities, but like. Do you like third down opportunity is kind of what I'm thinking of. Okay. Do you think Dalton's going to convert that? Do you think TB12 2.0 is going to convert that? Maybe they might do it a couple of times to the point like where you can get 14 points total. But then you're looking at like where it's 14-14 in the middle of the fourth quarter and both teams are just begging to give it away. And then we're sitting there maybe like hoping on a tie.
Might get another tie again. That would be
fantastic. It would not shock me. I've been actually like, that might actually be the more that I've been thinking about it now. I've been thinking about it just for a couple minutes while I was just talking, and I was like, man, I might bet that tie. I bet you any money it's like 15-1. I'm probably going to look at it right now.
It's actually worse than shekels for sure. Man, we had so many questions. We got to have you back on this podcast.
We will for sure. We got to talk NBA with the odds fellow. He'll get in next time and. Because he's really our NBA guru, so we'll
like you call yourself the king. I call yourself the dude of touchdown props. But
I mean,
that's because I'm a big
emoji for guy. Dude. So I think that was.
I saw you with that sweater with Shark, who's a guy that
this one.
Yeah, a guy, a guy I do a lot of podcasts with, and no, you had like a cardigan sweater, and it looked like you had pajama pants on. And you threw him off with so many questions that I loved it because I all I do is like I just want to throw that guy off on a podcast.
The Shark is sharp on his like it should be like called like Sharpie water snakes. He's a very sharp dude. Like he's sharp on his feet.
Well, he kept trying to like dodge your questions, and I thought you kept going to it. And so I appreciate that a lot. But anyways, I want to gotta end the podcast here. We are over our time, but man, did we have a good time here with GDog5000 on Twitter. And keep following along. I'll let you do your own plugs on this one. I'm just going to throw it to you.
Sure. Thank you, Guns. Well, first off, I just want to say thank you for bringing me on Dad Bodds. Second time around. Happy to see you guys. So I guess the first thing that I would say is on Thursday, FTM Bets is hosting myself and Chris Meany. We're hosting a Thanksgiving Best Bets show. Super Deluxe Spectacular Hour, I think, is the working title that we're going with right now. But at the same time, we're going to basically break down the sides and totals for all games. I'm going to give out my touchdown score picks. And this is the interesting wrinkle. So a lot of people, they'll message me saying, I want your touchdown score picks. I can't watch the show, Touchdown Town, whatever. Here's the deal. My touchdown score picks for the first 2 games, exclusively on that show. I'm not sharing them anywhere else. I'm not putting them anywhere else. If you want them, that's where it's going to be. So hopefully people will be able to join in. I'm going to make sure to let people know that before the show so that way they can make sure to tune in. And then obviously at FTM Bets, I'm doing a ton of writing there, whether it be previewing NBA championship odds, Super Bowl odds, NBA MVP, NFL MVP, all those kind of big market futures and like that to be able to for the site. But the main thing that I do goes back to touchdown scores. And this is kind of why I try to take the little moniker of the crown, I guess, from that, because I don't think anybody else does this, is that tracking those odds, you're able to find out kind of who the best touchdown scorer is when you want to bet these. Like one of the examples that I used to bring up is you're able to find out if you were to blindly bet touchdown scores, because I think there's like 3 or 5 guys per year that you could identify at the beginning of the season and do that. Joe Mixon, for example, is 9-1 through 10 weeks. If you had just tailed him blindly, you'd be up 10 units in profit, just not even doing anything. You're just like, I'm taking Joe Mixon every week. So I think those are the types of things that you could be able to find with the data that we have at FTM Bets. And I'm 100% certain that you cannot find that data anywhere else. A lot of people, they like to track spreads and odds or spreads and totals and try to find those historic odds. Nobody tracks historic prop odds, and I'm one of the people that's going to be able to do that.
I love that as somebody that likes to do that as well. I do that with team totals for like NBA, NHL, and MLB, because those are all kind of hard to find historical team total. Home and away. This splits. Is a tip. This to me is like that's gold. That what you're talking about is solid gold for those that want it, because
you just brought up the perfect word to describe that, because I wanted to say that in this industry. Raw data is gold. If you have tracking data and records and everything else for that, people will pay a pretty penny for that. And
well, I got that for college football too.
Yeah, so if you have that,
that's why we work good together.
But like the databases is what's very, very important. All these newer companies, that's what they're trying to acquire, because that will make them set themselves apart. And that's one of the things that we can do at FTM Bets. And by the way, that touchdown tool that I've offered, and as well, another thing that I would suggest is to check out the prop shop at FTM Bets, because let's say I wanted to bet, which a bet that is just blew up in my face, but let's just say you wanted to bet over 2.5 3-pointers for Kyle Lowry tonight. And instead of opening up every single app of FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, everyone that you have, we have partnerships with all those sports books. If you go to the prop shop and you typed in Kyle Lowry, you will be able to see his 3-point prop odds and the line for every single sports book right there in one page. So that way you don't even have to try to open up multiple books. It is, again, that's not for just that prop. That's for all props. So FTM Bets prop shop, FTM Bets touchdown scorer tools. Make sure to watch Touchdown Town on Sundays with Bets TV. I got too much going on, but
you're a busy man.
That is pretty much it, guys.
You are jack of all trades. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having us on, having you on the podcast.
Having me on your show, yeah.
And make sure you follow us along on GPO Log, 4 Cappers, 1 Spot for all a nice price. And we'll see you next week. That concludes episode 63. Till then, G-Dog, give your closing bon chance.
Let's cash some tickets and bon chance.
Peace.